Look, I have had this on my mind all week, and we need to address the fact that the Minnesota Vikings are still considering veteran wide receiver additions despite recently signing Jauan Jennings to the roster. While Jennings officially rounds out the top trio behind Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, reports indicate our front office is still actively hunting for more high-profile talent. It is fascinating because this team has the cap space to make a massive splash, potentially signaling a highly aggressive strategy. And honestly, the more details come out, the harder it is to ignore what is going on behind the scenes. My name is Lucas, so please hit the like button and subscribe, then drop your name and city in the comments below. Let's get into it. The Minnesota Vikings have officially finalized their wide receiver rotation by signing former 49ers standout Jauan Jennings to serve as the new third option following the departure of Jalen Nailor in free agency. Jennings arrives in Minnesota to join a formidable core alongside Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, effectively filling the primary void in our three-receiver scheme under head coach Kevin O'Connell. While this move appears to solidify our starters, Ryan Dunleavy of the New York Post suggests that the front office remains active in exploring further veteran additions before training camp begins. With general manager Nolan Teasley now in command, the Vikings have maintained significant financial flexibility, currently holding over $13 million in cap space to potentially secure an additional impact player. Let's be real, this aggressive approach under new management is exactly what we have hoped to see as fans looking toward our 2026 championship window. The prospect of adding high-profile names such as DeAndre Hopkins or Keenan Allen creates a fascinating dilemma for our front office as they weigh the benefits of veteran leadership against the development of younger assets like 2025 third-rounder Ty Felton. This news has triggered a complex emotional reaction throughout our fan base, blending optimism for a deep playoff run with a lingering caution about how these roster adjustments might affect our long-term salary structure. While Jefferson and Addison remain locked in as the foundation of our passing attack, the sudden availability of seasoned talent on the open market presents a major decision for our leadership team. As we analyze the potential for one final major signing, the most pressing concern remains the internal cost of such a move. If Nolan Teasley decides to pull the trigger on another star, which specific player on the current depth chart would he be willing to sacrifice to make room for a new arrival? The most surprising aspect of this potential roster overhaul is the realization that Nolan Teasley is actively monitoring the veteran market, despite the team already sitting in a comfortable financial position. This situation traces back to the organizational shift toward a win-now mentality, where the front office determined that relying solely on developing young prospects like the 2025 third-rounder Ty Felton might be too risky for a championship-caliber campaign. By maintaining over $13 million in cap space, the leadership team preserves the flexibility to pivot if an aging star becomes available at a discount. Historically, the Vikings have seen great success when balancing homegrown talent with seasoned veterans who understand the intensity of deep playoff runs, much like previous cycles where defensive leadership transformed our competitive ceiling. Behind closed doors, Kevin O'Connell and his staff are undoubtedly debating whether a high-profile addition would disrupt the existing chemistry or serve as the final piece to sustain our offensive efficiency against division rivals like the Green Bay Packers. And honestly, the coaching staff is likely prioritizing players who demonstrate the discipline required for our complex system over raw athleticism alone. Integrating a veteran who can mentor our younger receivers while contributing on third downs provides a strategic hedge against potential mid-season injuries to our established core. We remember how quickly depth issues derailed past aspirations, which makes this current period of evaluation so critical for our future trajectory. If the front office decides to prioritize long-term stability by holding on to that cap space, they gamble that our current roster can withstand the rigors of an entire season without another major acquisition. However, if they choose to pursue a veteran presence, they must weigh the immediate impact on production against the long-term cost of losing younger, cheaper options currently fighting for those final roster spots in our increasingly crowded wide receiver room. The urgency of this situation rests on the thin margin between a good season and a true championship run for the Minnesota Vikings. With Nolan Teasley managing our $13 million in available cap space, we are effectively choosing between current depth and an expensive veteran star who could redefine our aerial attack. And the more I look at this, it becomes clear that adding a player like DeAndre Hopkins or Keenan Allen would force difficult cuts deeper down the roster, potentially sacrificing the young developmental talent we spent time cultivating. This move shifts our entire offensive profile, changing the way we approach early season defensive looks from NFC North rivals like the Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers. If we secure a high-profile veteran, our passing game becomes a nightmare for opposing secondary units to scheme against during our critical mid-season matchups against the Detroit Lions. These games will determine our seeding and overall playoff standing, and having a reliable third option is the difference between a stalled drive and a game-winning touchdown. While we have faith in the current core, balancing our financial flexibility with the need for immediate production is a delicate act. We need to be certain that any incoming veteran provides more value than the promising young players they would inevitably replace. As Minnesota Vikings fans, we want to see management take these calculated risks when the championship window is open wide, but we also value the long-term stability that the current front office has worked so hard to build. The decision to finalize the wide receiver room now or wait for the market to settle will set the tone for the entire year, proving whether or not this team is truly prepared to challenge for the title when the weather turns cold and the pressure of the postseason arrives in Minneapolis. The argument for adding another veteran receiver is rooted in the necessity of injury insurance during a long campaign. By securing a high-caliber target like DeAndre Hopkins or Keenan Allen, Nolan Teasley would provide Kevin O'Connell with a luxury of riches that guarantees our offensive production remains consistent even if Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison were to miss time. This depth would transform our passing attack into a legitimate nightmare for opposing defensive coordinators across the league. What makes this even bigger is the sheer competitive advantage gained by keeping such talent away from other contenders. However, we must consider the downside of disrupting the chemistry building between our current wideouts and our quarterback. Bringing in a veteran expecting a high volume of targets could inadvertently stunt the growth of promising young players like Ty Felton. If that newcomer does not immediately mesh with our system, the front office faces the risk of creating unnecessary friction in the locker room while burning through precious cap space. Other teams, including the Philadelphia Eagles and the Buffalo Bills, have been notoriously cautious about balancing star power with salary cap efficiency, often opting for internal development over splashy free agent acquisitions. The media buzz surrounding these potential additions has been loud, but here's where I land on this. While the prospect of adding a name like Hopkins or Allen is undeniably exciting, I believe the reports regarding these specific veteran stars might be slightly overblown given our current financial situation. I prefer seeing our younger talent earn their stripes rather than forcing a square peg into a round hole late in the offseason. We have built a solid foundation, and I am not yet convinced that chasing a big name is the correct move for our long-term trajectory toward that 2026 championship. Ultimately, this aggressive approach signifies a clear pivot in franchise philosophy under Nolan Teasley, aiming to build a championship roster by leveraging our available $13 million in cap space. By prioritizing proven depth like Jauan Jennings, the front office is signaling that the era of patience is over as we look to capitalize on the prime years of stars like Justin Jefferson. Think about it this way. The commitment to surrounding our core with seasoned veterans suggests the Vikings are no longer content with merely competing, but are instead focused on securing a deep postseason run before our 2026 window closes. As Minnesota Vikings fans, you should feel a genuine sense of confidence heading into training camp because our leadership is clearly prioritizing production over empty promises. Having established reliable hands at the wide receiver position ensures that Kevin O'Connell has the tools necessary to execute his offensive vision regardless of unforeseen circumstances or minor injuries. This stability is vital for maintaining momentum in a competitive division. We are at a crossroads where the front office must weigh the benefits of bringing in another high-profile name like DeAndre Hopkins or Keenan Allen against the development of younger assets like Ty Felton. The decision to invest heavily in the receiving core reflects a high standard of accountability that we have all been waiting to see in Minnesota. With these strategic maneuvers, would you rather see the team sign a veteran like Keenan Allen to chase a title now or